Between the years 2200 and 5050 BC, one of the most developed cultures of the European Bronze Age flourished in the southeast of the Iberian Peninsula, the Argaric culture. However, this civilization collapsed within a span of a few years, and it took many centuries for southeastern Iberia to see such a sophisticated socio-economic and political system again. But why did this collapse happen? I'm David Cott, host of New History of Spain, and today I will answer all the key questions about the culture of El Argar. Between 2200 and 2100 BC, a major climatic event known as the 4.2 kiloyear event occurred, causing a rapid and abrupt global climate change that led to increased droughts in the Mediterranean basin, resulting in the collapse of civilizations and migrations. In some areas of the Iberian Peninsula, a process of depopulation occurred. But paradoxically, the southeast, already a dry region, saw an unexpected rise in human activity and the emergence of new political entities. Could the challenge of securing water have sparked the development of a new civilization here? It seems likely. For a long time, it was believed that the Argaric peoples were foreigners, but research has shown that they were actually the descendants of the region's earlier inhabitants, evolving from the Copper Age Los Millares culture. The site that gives its name to this civilization is El Argar, near Vera in Almeria. El Argar is estimated to have housed about 500 inhabitants and was founded in 2050 BC, on a plateau more difficult to access than a cheap and cheerful apartment in Madrid. Nevertheless, more significant Argaric sites have been found, such as La Bastida de Totana in Murcia, with an estimated population of between 600 and 800 inhabitants. The Argaric people were very clever and chose high places such as hills and hill rocks to build their most important settlements, sites with good natural defenses that often made it unnecessary to build walls. However, there were also smaller settlements on the plains, dedicated to agriculture and livestock. Trade occurred between the small settlements and the large ones located in places unsuitable for agriculture. And it's possible that the small settlements paid taxes to the large towns. The Argaric society already had marked gender divisions. Women married men with whom they had no blood ties, moved to where the husband resided, and inheritance was transmitted paternally. In the early Bronze Age, the impact of bronze on society was still small, and this has been confirmed because bronze accounted for no more than 15% of the metals recorded in the region of El Argar, and was primarily used for adornments rather than farming tools or weapons. However, the Argaric people were pioneers in their use of technology to foster economic development. They introduced the Iberian Peninsula's first artificial irrigation systems to cultivate legumes, and they built cisterns and reservoirs to manage their limited water resources effectively. The use of metal agricultural tools became widespread, and they were able to expand the arable lands. Everything I have said up to this point might sound impressive, but there is a dark side to the story, since the economic and demographic expansion of the Argaric civilization came at a high price. If there was one thing that characterized the Argaric society, it was its inequality. An inequality that only intensified as the centuries passed. There were distinct social classes, evident from the luxurious items found in the burial sites of the elite. From around 1950 BC, we see clear signs that high-ranking positions were passed down from parents to their children, so only a few families ended up holding most of the power. During the Argaric period, chiefdoms developed, a political organization with a complexity between tribes and states. It can be said that chiefdoms do not have the formality of states, but there were already dominant clans, leaders, hereditary successions, and political assemblies to make decisions. Who was at the pinnacle of the Argaric civilization? That is difficult to determine, but what can be said with the evidence that has been studied so far is that the Argaric elites were not a warrior class as has often been claimed, or at least they cannot be defined as warriors with all the imagery of violence that entails. Of the more than 150 Argaric skeletons studied, few show injuries that can be linked to violence, and the people of the Argaric civilization also did not use swords. Their weapons were clubs and daggers. It is believed they may have practiced warfare in a ritualized and regulated manner, with one-on-one combats or fights involving very few men. We do not know if these war practices were sufficient to dominate the population or if there were also religious rituals to legitimize their power. In any case, what can be said is that there was a dominant social and political class with significant power. They were able to mobilize the population for large projects like building infrastructure, they managed water and granaries, and they imposed taxes in the form of grain and metals, amassing great wealth while possibly reducing some of their subjects to serfdom or even slavery. This is the anarchist in myself speaking, but hierarchies, the power over others, inevitably lead to perverse and destructive dynamics that fuel bad human traits such as an insatiable thirst for more wealth, land, and power. By the start of the late Argaric period, around 1750 BC, we can observe disturbing cranial traumas among men, and there are indications of the arrival of external elites in some Argaric settlements. This suggests that the society transitioned from chiefdoms to a state society, possibly with one or more city-states capable of demanding tribute and placing trusted individuals in positions of local power. The focus on barley as a single crop, since the victorious ruling class imposed that as tribute, forced families to abandon more diverse and nutritionally balanced farming practices. The poor had to cut down trees and clear new lands, even those with very low quality soil, all to meet the demand for tribute. The elite lineages accumulated food in large granaries, giving them the power to distribute food at will. With the forging of an Argaric state society, the material culture and symbolism became more uniform, and the same agricultural and livestock practices were followed across territories, ignoring local ecological needs. Child mortality only increased due to poor hygiene conditions, malnutrition, and poverty. The poor became poorer, and the rich richer, a sadly recurring story in human history. However, 200 years later, everything came crashing down. All the small agricultural settlements of the Argaric civilization vanished. Half of the Argaric towns disappeared, and waves of desperate people migrated out of southeast Iberia. Those who stayed stopped cultivating only barley and diversified their crops and livestock, freed from the power that dictated what to grow and what to breed. Their material culture changed, as if they consciously wanted to erase the Argaric past. Society reverted to less complex and hierarchical forms, and there were no more monuments to inequality like the Argaric burials. But why did the Argaric civilization collapse around 1550 BC? The prelude that precipitated the disaster could have been the Minoan eruption, which occurred a few decades earlier on a Greek island. It was a devastating volcanic eruption that led to droughts and other environmental disasters. During the Argaric era, there had been extensive deforestation as people cleared land for agriculture, even farming less fertile lands to satisfy the elite's relentless demand for grain as tribute. But when the climate worsened, the crops failed, leading to widespread discontent and despair among a population already pushed to its limits. That's why, around 1550 BC, many Argaric settlements disappeared, some with unequivocal signs of fires caused by violent actions. The expansion of some kind of Argaric state society was partly violent, and its economic system had only impoverished a several population for the benefit of a ruling class. And in a twist of fate, it was the oppressed in the name of civilization who, after saying enough is enough, extinguished the flame of the Argaric civilization. The story of the Argaric civilization and its fall is not just a historical curiosity. It echoes modern issues of inequality and the impact of societal structures. It also reminds me of the dynamics of growing inequality in Al-Andalus and the Kingdom of Leon during the transition between the early medieval and high medieval periods, which we will explore in future episodes. More complex societies with more spectacular infrastructure and buildings do not necessarily have to be seen as progress. Always consider who really benefits from such developments, as many eye-catching, flashy societies were built on the exploitation of the many. If you enjoyed this episode and are new here, don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the way I talk about history, consider supporting the show on Patreon. You'll find the links to Patreon and other relevant sites in the description. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.